It is Indiana in the Morning, presented as always by First Commonwealth Bank here on AM 1160 WCCS and 101.1 FM in church. A couple of weeks ago, the topic was not asking the question, if there's anything I can do, would you let me know, but how can I help? And maybe that's a good way to begin our conversation here this morning with Dr. Christian Vaccaro from IUP and Melissa Swauger from IUP as well. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning, Todd.
Good morning.
We have a very important conference coming up, and it's a very long title. We'll just suffice it to say the MARTI conference, and having to do with opioid addiction and suicide prevention when it comes right down to it as well. It's coming up this next week, isn't it?
Yes.
Beginning next Monday at the Cavalci Complex. So let's talk about the topic a little bit. Who are we aiming at with this particular event?
Well, really, we're aiming to get people involved that would, in the everyday course of their work or their lives, come into contact with a person with an opioid addiction, or may come into contact with a person who, may be thinking about suicide. Mm-hmm. And so, we're looking at community members, but specifically, we do training for a wide variety of different professionals, including counselors, drug and alcohol counselors, psychologists, and teachers as well. So we're really have a wide swath of people that this conference we would hope would appeal to.
Yeah, the way you said that was like, okay, that's everybody.
Yes.
When it comes right down to it, because the problem really does reach into every family.
Right, and I think specifically for this conference, it reaches a rural area and people and practitioners who may not be able to make it to a larger conference in Pittsburgh. And so the MARTI Institute, part of its mission and outreach is to reach a rural area.
Yeah, and we're the definition of that here. And we have such an advantage in having an institution such as IUP, which can offer events of this nature, mm-hmm. With nationally recognized speakers and people who also are local enough that they recognize the issues that we face around here.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that is really important to think about is how opioid addiction has impacted rural areas. If we take Indiana County, for instance, the overdose rate here is around 41 for every 100,000 residents, which is one of the highest rates for the state of Pennsylvania. And the state of Pennsylvania actually has one of the highest overdose rates in the country. So we're really at the epicenter here. Mm. And, there's a negative side to that, but I'm an optimist. And so what I tend to think about is how if we're at the center of the problem, we can also be at the center of the solution as well.
Yeah, it sounds like a great approach. So how do we get it done? What's going to happen at this conference?
You want to talk a little bit about it, Melissa?
Sure. Like you said, there's a variety of speakers who are nationally recognized. They're leading researchers in the field. And the conference has an approach that we want to look at the impact on not just individuals, but families and communities as well. And so we recognize that addiction is not an individual problem, and to resolve it, you can't just work with people who are suffering from it, right? You have to work with families as units, and you have to see what the community impact is and what community approaches to resolving the issue is as well.
Now, you mentioned training. Talk about that aspect of it, because people might think, okay, I'm going to come and I'm going to sit and I'm going to listen to people talking. It has to be more than that, doesn't it?
Yeah, so we've recruited a wide variety of experts to give us the latest updates about what procedures to use if you're a counselor or if you're a teacher in the classroom, how to identify if there's a student that is abusing opioid painkillers or illegal opioids. We've recruited a wide variety of speakers that are also out doing working with patients, working with clients. And we also recruited speakers that are doing innovative things like using technology to combat opioid and suicide prevention as well. So we have this nice wide swath of speakers who come from a variety of different professions. And the great thing is, if you're a psychologist, you're going to see, what other types of counselors are doing, what's going on in the classroom. If you're a teacher, you're going to be able to see, what happens once you refer a student, or once you refer a young person to, a recovery agency. If you're a police officer who works with interdiction strategy, you're going to see what the other hand is doing once there's that handoff from the justice system to the recovery system as well. So we've put together kind of the all-star team of these recovery specialists, and when we're looking at who's going to be coming, you're going to get training in your specific area, but you're also going to see kind of what the other hand is doing as well.
I think, too, one of the unique things about the conference is that embedded in it are speakers and activities that provide practitioners with self-care techniques. Mm-hmm. So every day during the lunch break, we have yoga, Tai Chi demonstrations, physical exercise and activity. But some of the speakers, too, talk about how do you, as a practitioner or somebody heavily involved in someone else's recovery, how do you protect yourself and care for yourself so that you don't get burned out?
That is an interesting aspect of this whole fight, the battle. Once you join the battle, I don't want to make the equation between actual warfare in a guns and weapons type of thing and this, but there are certainly relationships such as PTSD, and the fact that people who join this battle can get, as you said, worn down, and they need to find ways to protect themselves and to keep themselves healthy through the entire war.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Part of that process is doing things like self-care, and then the other part of the process is to know what everyone else is doing. To use the war analogy, everyone is just one soldier, and it's a good idea to be able to step back and see what everybody is doing to be able to aid in this epidemic. Yeah. And so a conference like MARTI really provides that type of venue to see, like, oh, it's not just I'm passing this particular client off to a black hole or a black box and not knowing whether or not they're going to be receiving treatment or care that's going to be helpful to them, or is it just going to be kicking the can along?
Yeah.
Our keynote speaker, that is one of our keynote speakers that will be speaking Wednesday afternoon in an event that's free and open to the public, is Gary Owen. He's a comedian, a stand-up comedian. He's also an actor. He's in Think Like a Man. He had a BET comedy, a reality show. He has a couple of Showtime specials. He lost his brother to heroin addiction. He's from Cincinnati, and he's coming here to speak on Wednesday afternoon. Yeah. And I think he'll have a lot of interesting and insightful things to say as a person who's grown up in a family with addiction and lost a brother to it. And now he's, he's a superstar, and he's trying to still deal with the aftermath of what he experienced in his own life.
Christian, you said something earlier about the connection between opioid abuse and the heroin problem and suicide as well. Mm-hmm. You can see, even from the treatment aspect of it, how people would start down a very dark road that could end in their consideration of suicide. From the treatment aspect of it, and certainly from the addiction aspect of it as well. So I think it's pretty important that this is a part of that whole conversation, too.
One of our speakers, Karen Ziegler, she's actually an IUP alum. She had a son who she lost to suicide, and she's tracing sort of the connection between male athletes and concussion and brain injury, and the path that leads to in terms of opioid usage, heroin addiction, and suicide. So she's going to be speaking about the connection between brain injuries in youth sports and later opioid use and suicide.
Wow.
And we really do see lots of connections between what would seem like two different subject matters. But in fact, sociologists and psychologists have begun to call these issues the deaths of despair, so overdose deaths as well as suicide, and have really identified how they're resultant from, in a lot of ways, the same genesis. And that's one of the reasons why we've decided this year to focus on both rather than just one or the other, because we see, there's so many connections between the two.
Boy, do we need more time on this topic, and we're going to get some more time on Thursday when we talk about it more. But for now, can people still register, get in, and become a part of this?
Absolutely, and we encourage it.
Okay, and how do they do that?
Well, there's several different ways that you can register. You can go to the IUP Marketplace and register directly. If you're unfamiliar with the IUP Marketplace, you can always contact our coordinator for registration. Her name is Crystal Deemer, and she can be reached Monday through Fridays during regular hours. And their telephone number is 724-357-2730, or you can email her at cdeemer@iup.edu, and she can help you with that registration process.
All right, very good. In fact, I have a number directly to her, too, that is on this release, and it's 724-357-1288.
Yes.
All right, so folks, and I would assume that schools and other organizations would certainly want their people to be there, and they might be able to help them hook up with this as well.
Act 48 credits are available to teachers. We have lots of different forms of accreditation that we can provide to counselors and drug and alcohol counselors, psychologists, etc. So there's multiple reasons why you would want to come to this conference.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, it starts next Monday, and it's a 5-day conference, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. 4.5.
4.5.
Friday's a half day.
There
yes.
you go. There you go. Well, thank you both for coming in today. We'll talk about it again on Thursday here on Indiana in the Morning. Meanwhile, we'll get that information out in a variety of ways through the rest of this week so that people can get themselves signed up. Thanks again for coming in.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, Todd.
It is Indiana in the Morning, presented as always by First Commonwealth Bank here on AM 1160 WCCS and 101.1 FM.